Welcome to Art Talk Tuesday. This week we're going to complete our discussion of the Addiction Triptych. I'm going to give a brief recap and then we're going to move on to our discussion of the final piece in the triptych, and that is hope. So as we discussed previously in the previous 2 weeks, I call this series a triptych because they deal with the same overarching theme in their 3 pieces. Most triptychs, as you would see, would be 3 different pieces depicting one scene in a panel. So here we have a progression. So I'm just calling it the triptych series. So it's not a traditional triptych, but it is still a triptych. If we go here to piece 1, which is entitled Addiction, we see here that the figure is grounded. There's a sense of heaviness. Even though there are flames coming up emanating from within the figure, we get a sense of despair, a lack of hope, of drainage here. We move on to the second piece in the series, which is entitled Withdrawal. We see once again the flames are emanating from the figure. The flames have now changed color to red, so they were here already an impure flame, and now they've become even more impure as these impurities are being burnt out of the figure. We see also this figure's here emanating a state that we would attribute to, if you watch so many movies, the demonic or that which is evil. And so the figure is in pain. It's also grounded deeply here into the flame. As we move to the final piece this week, this piece is entitled Hope. It is also 22 by 30, as the first piece is also 22 by 30. We see here we have a complete transformation that has happened here. We have kind of a color scheme going with the other 2. Here we move to a new state of being. So we could look at this in terms of the Hegelian dialectic. We have synthesis, antithesis, and then we move back to synthesis again, or a newer, higher synthesis. And that is kind of what we're looking at when we're discussing this piece here. We see the pieces, the colors have changed. The palette now has moved to blues and purples. So we're looking at a much cooler palette here than we have in the other 2 pieces. Also, in terms of the sense of frequency, pastel and lighter colors are actually of a higher vibratory frequency than the colors we associate with as being very fierce colors, such as reds, orange, etc. So we're moving to cool blues, purples. From a spiritual standpoint, these frequencies also represent the highest chakras. As we move up the chakra system, the root chakra is red, orange, yellow, green. So we're moving up. Here we have the highest chakras, which would be the chakra inside the head of, we call it the third eye chakra, but that's really not what it is. And then the crown chakra, which is purple. So we have these here, these colors here, which are depicting more spiritual aspect, a spiritual evolution which has occurred and taken place, the result of going through this addiction, withdrawal, and now moving to hope synthesis. Also, if you know anything about flames, once again, a pure flame, if you look on your gas stove, you see that a pure flame is a blue flame. So we move from a state of impurity, increasing impurity, with these 2 to now a state of purification. One has gone through the fire and come out, for lack of a better term, we will say triumphant. So we have the blues and the purples here, and this flame, if you notice now, the figure is floating. And the other 2, you see that the figure is grounded. Even though the figure is not on any particular surface, you get a sense of it being down, grounded, a heaviness, because we're talking about darker, lower vibrations, stuck in more of the realm of the material of matter, particularly when we're talking about being addicted to a substance, although all addictions are not about substances. And so here we see the figure is floating. There's a sense of lightness. Also, you've got a sense of transparency here that you don't see in these other 2 figures. They're heavy, they're lighter in terms of the application of the paint, but there is not a sense of transparency that we find in this figure. Also, the figure is not grounded. It's floating. These other 2 seem very grounded. This, we have a sense of lightness. So the figure is floating up. He's in a traditional meditation pose, full lotus meditation pose. You can see here his hands are in a mudra, and the flames are not coming from the figure. The flames are surrounding the figure and interpenetrating the figure. If you look at some of the small things, the details going on here, you can see the flames are interpenetrating the figure. So this is a whole new state of being, a state of synthesis, a state of oneness. And so we also have a sense of lightness, because now the vibration has been lifted through this process and achieved a different level of spiritual understanding. A kind of awakening has taken place. And that is often what happens for many people. They are not the same person that you knew sometimes before the addiction experience and definitely not during the addiction experience. So in a way, we have come back to ourselves. And in the process of coming back to that true self, we have also elevated ourselves to a certain degree. So just wanted to depict that here. And that's what I'm playing with in this piece. We look here, we also have the black, which I'm keeping. In all three of the pieces, you see the black, but the black here takes on a slightly different meaning. If we're looking at black in these other two, we're looking at despair, we're looking at hopelessness, we're looking at fear, the unknown. Here, we're looking at the darkness of stillness, which is very different. The universe does all its work in silence and darkness and stillness. God speaks to us in this small, still voice, oftentimes in the unseen, but we hear and we know. And so this whole idea here of this all taking place in this spiritual realm, this level of higher vibration, and that's what we're dealing with in this piece. Also, we see the figure here is much lighter, much more transparent. I also, on this piece, I put a really high sheen. The other two don't have a gloss on it. On this piece, when I finished it, it's probably got about 18 layers for each color, and they're interpenetrating each other. But to also give it a more light and airy feel, kind of make it more ethereal, I've also put a layer of acrylic varnish on here. So if you really look at it, you'll see that it's interpenetrating with the watercolor paint and creating kind of a translucent quality to the overall piece, if you were actually to see the original. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I hope that you enjoyed learning about this series. Not sure what's going to happen next week, but there will be something that we'll be discussing. So thank you for tuning in. Don't forget, if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, like the video. If you're interested in purchasing this series of these pieces, the pieces are $1,300 each. They're also available in print on my website, starting at $35 and up, depending on what size you choose. You can get those matted and framed and ready to go if that's what you choose. So thank you. See you next week.